Misfortune is an obscure game for the original Game Boy. Since no hard copies ROMs exist, all information about the game is derived from the personal accounts and scant assemblage of screenshots. The game does not contain any credits, and whoever created it is still unknown to this day. The few people who have experienced it considered it to be one of the most scariest video games ever made. Given its age and cult following among rare horror game enthusiasts, it's eerily possible that the authors of widely known creepypastas, such as Sonic.exe and Lavender and Down Syndrome, drew inspiration from Misfortune. The player then controls what appears to be a young boy in this strange Gothic building. After brief exploring, the player is then confronted by malevolent being. Despite the character never identifying, some still seeing notable similarities. They claim what representation of Biomet, Beelzebub, or the devil. Upon meeting the strange, mysterious creature, a dialogue box would appear on the text. I exist within every fabric of reality. Do you want to challenge me? This followed by a yes or no choice. Should the player choose yes, with the replies being, then let's begin. The player is then transported into a series of maze-like rooms, each filled with pit drops, locked doors, and keys and traps. The objective for the player is to progress through each room by either reaching the stairs to the next level or solving another kind of puzzle. This can include answering riddles or choosing correct doors or pathways. The most well-known example is in a level where the 4 small cabins are shown on the screen. A dialogue box will appear that reads, "Choose wrong and misfortune shall befall your loved ones. Are you ready to play?" Then, should the player ever make a mistake throughout the game, the screen will cut to black before showing a more detailed image of a demon along with a dialogue box that say, "I am God here," and what happens to be blood-styled writing. Rumors penetrating the game's alleged harmful effects began to surface on the internet around the late 1990s. Players claimed to have begun experiencing ongoing depression and dread shortly after losing and seeing the game over screen. Once the members of online forums who told such claims thought to have died or disappeared when they suddenly became inactive without warning. Heated discussions soon dominated these forums for quite some time, but before mystery never seemed to be getting any closer to being solved. Some who wrote the thing off as a tasteless practical joke. Others believed that viewing the image of the evil character after losing the game can really cause the player to experience misfortune as the game's antagonist promised. As soon as people began to speculate the eerie soundtrack of the game that was caused. The music in the game is considered of deep, buzzy tones, off-key melodies. The game had a remarkably unsettling soundtrack, despite the composition of being limited to the 8-bit Game Boy bank sound. The game over screen had practically erratic, most nauseating music with very high frequency that accompanied it. Rumor has it that very track could somehow influence mods, and then even though patterns of all of the tracks in the game. The only theme that came to play when first meeting the demonic entity can be found on the internet today. Searching for the playable ROMs or cartridges online is futile because non-existent. In fact, most of those who have played it directly hadn't sought throughout looking for it, but rather stumbled upon by accident. According to first-hand accounts, certain types of copies of various Game Boy titles contain Misfortune in its entirety. The means for accessing it through those games is vary, but typically involve exploiting glitches or using cheating devices. Although some have detailed what they had done to trigger the misfortune to start, attempts by using the same methods had always failed. Another common observation that was by any means sprites, Misfortune had been copied from its host games. Misfortune is known to have generated the following: Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, Pokemon Red, Spud's Adventure, Poochie Charat, Atelier Marie, JP. And as for this section, I'm going to be speaking you a lot less impractically and a lot more personally. It's important you read this part. Now, is this game really cursed? Does it have a spectacular really bide with the same and snare incoherent in its deadly game? Who knows? What I do now is that the game definitely exists. I also know what it can do. I've never played it myself, but I knew someone who did. A good friend of mine, actually. We were closer than brothers, and we told each other everything. He was the most enthusiastic, outgoing guy I ever met. And like me, he was really into video games. Sure enough, one day he told me that he found a spooky new side game hidden in Pokemon, and he showed it to me. And back then it gave me an odd feeling, though, to be fair, I had always been easily scared. Soon after, he started talking less and less. Later, he either ignored my calls or tell me he was sick or busy when I invited him out. He became something of a recluse. I did still sometimes get to see him at high school, but rarely spoke and snapped at me when I pried too much over why he was acting away. About a month later, before he got the train off after school, he said goodbye for the first time in weeks. I'll never forget the look he gave me that day. It was the macho nothing gets to me type of guy, and that he always masked his emotions really well. But now he had a face filled with grief, like he was about to cry. He made me a promise one thing before he left, and that I never played that game. That was the last time we spoke. The next morning, they found his scratched up and bloody corpse hanging from the disassembled weight machine. The police concluded that he managed to lift up 220 libs of weights over his head and with the cord until it attached, loop it around his neck, released it over the other side of the machine, causing strangulation. As the weight of the other side yanked him upwards, the most horrible detail was found was his hands clutching into the inside of the makeshift noose, as if he were trying to tug it loose. That was it. The case was closed. Personally, I don't believe that's what's happened. If you are a collector, or perhaps just heard about the legend and want to experience the game for yourself, you should reconsider. Even if you deny the existence of demons and curses, the misfortune that will befall you is very real. You have been warned.